course, as Manan said, we are in a state of war and we are in the end game now. So what we do now is very most important. We have been preparing for a long period of time, especially final and IPCC students have taken considerable amount of efforts to reach till this stage. But if you don't plan your studies accordingly and you don't revise or cover entire thing that you have done so far, it may happen that what you have done so far may not be of so much of use to you, because you will not be able to recollect what you have done for the last 6 months or last 1 year, 2 years maybe. So it is very important for you to understand the importance of these last days. So coming to my first part is, how do you prepare yourself for in 1.5 days before the examinations? So you need to plan, and this is for each and every examination, be it your first paper or all the 8 papers, or for CA IPCC students as well as for the foundation students. Whatever may be the case, how do you prepare yourself before the exam? And it necessarily not 1.5 days. Whatever time you get before the examinations, how do you prepare yourself? That's it. What I'll try to uh, just tell you. So of course everyone can relate to these numbers, and this is exactly what I was pointing out, as in what is the importance of these 1.5 days. If you plan your studies adequately and you work according to your plan, execute your plans, then this 1.5 days will have the ability to push your score from 39 to 40. And similarly, those who have prepared very well, they can push their score from 59 to 60 as well. So this is all the game is of these 1.5 days. How do you cover what you have done already? How do you combine all your efforts, what you have done so far, is what this all 1.5 days is about. So broadly, what should be your strategy in this 1.5 days? So I have bifurcated this into 2 parts, for practical papers and for theory papers. So coming first to the practical papers, what you need to do is that you should be first ready with your ABC analysis for each of the subjects. So let's say there is a direct tax paper, or since we are talking specifically of practical papers, let's say we are talking about SFM. There are various subjects, various topics in the SFM, and over the period of time, all the students may be aware that these are the topics that frequently appear in your examinations, and that is where your ABC analysis comes in. You need to chalk out those specific topics that are very important, and which frequently appear in your examination. And you, in any state, you cannot afford to lose out on those topics if you have not prepared. So it is very essential to understand for yourself what topics are important, what topics are not important. And I always suggest those who contact me how to prepare is to maintain a formula book or maintain a summary book for each of the important topics. And this is not just for your 1.5 days before the exam. This is something which you can do from day one as well. So that from day one, your intention or your ultimate goal should be, what I should do today which enables me to recollect everything 1.5 days before the examination, because that is what is would be essential in the end. Whatever you can recollect, whatever you can revise in this 1.5 days, of course you can remember otherwise also, but these 1.5 days would have much bearing on your final paper. What 3 hours and 15 minutes that you will spend in the exam hall, you will tend to remember more what you have done in this 1.5 days. So you need to just prepare for each subjects. What are the top A category topics, B and C? Then I would suggest for practical papers, if you have a decent grip over these subjects, you should at least, and especially for FR, where you have more number of days before, and you can choose how many number of days you want to invest for your FR studies, you must solve, and I repeat, you must solve at least one paper. in practical topics. So the reason why I'm saying this is that once you solve paper before your exam day, you exactly are in a zone that you'll be able to monitor yourself what is exactly the shortcomings that you are facing, what are the obstacles that you're facing while writing the paper. It may so happen that you know the entire topic, you know the entire question, how to answer that, but you may not recollect how to start that answer, how to the main crux of the part, the main crux of the question is you may just fail to recollect. That is where your practice would help you. One in these days, if you solve one paper, you will be aware where you are coming short, what all obstacles you are facing, and that is exactly that you need to fine tune just before your exam day, so that you should not replicate those errors in your exam. So the main point is to solve the paper, to monitor your speed, your efficiency, your time management, whether you're able to complete the paper in these 3 hours. And I'll come again on this part in the subsequent slides. It is very important to complete your paper of entire 100 marks. It so happens that some of the students who tell me that they have attempted 70 marks and they are very confident that out of those 70 marks, they'll at least get 65 marks. This is very, very rare, and I would not suggest this. If you have if you attempt 100 marks of paper, you have many more and a lot chances that you can clear at least 40 marks, 50 marks if you have attempted 100 marks of paper. But if you attempt only 70, 75 marks of paper, then it's all how well you have attempted those 70 marks, because lot would depend upon that. You are straight away handing over 30 marks to the examiner, as you have not attempted those part of the paper. So these all things would help only when you have solved a paper a day before exam, or in case of FR 2 or 3 days prior to the examinations. Again, if some of you feel that solving a paper would involve much more time and you're not yet ready to solve the paper before the exam, at least try to attempt one question from each topic. So in a way, you are attempting a paper, but you are not in a fix to attempt entire paper in this limited 3 hours. So before the exam, at least solve, at least start your, let your mind think, how would I solve if this question comes in exam? How fast you can solve, how efficiently you can solve, how effectively you can solve those questions. So you need to solve at least few questions of each topics, so to get a hand. And again, it is important that you cannot, as you can see in the presentation, you cannot waste time in searching which questions will I solve now. That every question should be pre-decided in these 7 days. ये 7 days में you'll have to ascertain which question would I solve in next 1.5 days of your exam. That would be of immense importance, because all your 1.5 days, each and every minute is very important. Any minute you waste in those days is a criminal waste of time. So yeah, again, you can solve RTPs and MTPs. Again, this will come in subsequently in more depth. Why exactly RTPs and MTPs? You can't just read them. You need to solve them for practical papers. I have seen many students, those you just there's an SFM sum with bonds and valuation involved, and they just start reading through the formulas and reading through the solution. That would not help in my view. You need to solve them exactly to know what are your shortcomings and what are your strength and weakness. Then coming to the theory papers. Again, theory, first part is very, very common in both all the papers, all set of papers, is that you'll have to analyze for yourself which topics you need to focus. So I'm not advising in any way that you need to focus only some of the topics, but some of the topics you need to focus more. So you need to do each and everything, but at the end of the day, you should know what is important and what you should need to focus more. So you can maintain a small summary book. I'll just towards the end of this presentation, I'll show how I have done, how I have maintained a summary book, and how I used to recollect, try to recollect each and everything during the examination in 1.5 days, during the 1.5 days. So the point is that you should have something to summarize in these 1.5 days. I'm kind of repeating myself again and again so that you can understand its emphasis, its importance, that you cannot read through the entire chapter in these 1.5 days. You don't have that kind of time. So that is when your summary, your own handwritten notes or your own summarized form would help you to recollect each and everything by not spending that amount of time that you initially spent. While writing the papers in of these theory subjects, try to retain the answers in a manner which is similar to ICIS answer pattern. So if ICI is a specific, you can see the suggested answer or the modules of ICI. If it is specific set of manner to respond to a particular solution, try to retain that kind of answers, that manner of answers, because what will happen is when the examiners would check your paper, they'll have some model solutions with them which would be given by ICI, and of course that would be similar to suggested answers. So he'll have a reference of suggested answers, and if you are writing in line with those answers, it would be you'll have more chances, so to speak, to get better marks. Of course you can write in your own language as well, unless if your answers are correct and to the point, it wouldn't matter, but you would stand to gain more if you're writing in a pattern as suggested by ICI. That is why I generally advise students to stick to the ICI module suggested answer pattern. And theory papers, this is one query that I get a lot, that do you need to quote section numbers? Do you get extra marks for quoting section numbers? What if you can't write the exact correct section number? What you don't remember the subsections? How would all that come into play, and would that matter or not? So my view is that these section number just aid to your presentation. So it is not key if you mention correct section number in income tax. If section 32 is depreciation, if you mention section 32, you'll get one more marks for that. It is not that kind of case. It of course would create an impression in the minds of the examiner, and that is what I would suggest. If you're looking for a rank, you need to create a good impression from the first page of your answer sheet. So that is when all these small things come into place. So while just coming back, so while strategizing what you need to do in this 1.5 days, you cannot focus on the part that I'll remember the section numbers and I'll get more marks for that. That would not involve any more marks, but of course it would involve an impression in the mind of the examiner. So but yeah, one thing is for sure, you cannot mention wrong section numbers. That is a strict no. If you do not recollect or you're not sure about the section number, please do not mention it. But if you mention a wrong number, it would be disastrous. That's all I can say. Yes, just to lighten the mood, in terms of DT paper, it's very difficult for the students. The often students say that it's not possible to recollect entire or revise entire portion in these 1.5 days. So how do you counter that? How do you overcome these things? So of course, in my times, my fellow students would say that DT should be a entire third group in itself. It does not fit into a paper. But jokes apart, it is what it is, and you need to. It is for everyone. It's not for you especially. What others are doing is what you'll have to do. So you need to prepare a strategy. You need to break down direct tax paper into specific components. So what I used to do is I used to carve out assessment related chapters, or some specific cluster of chapters that I would summarize together and in a short span, in a short summary kind of thing, and used to revise that before the exam. So you're not revising each and every chapters. You just clubbing 3-4 chapters and revising that. So of course it is not possible to cover 100%. If you can cover, it's very good. If it's not possible, you should at least aim for 80 to 90% coverage in DD question papers. So it is difficult, but just try to break it down technically. Again, your ABC analysis would come into play here as well. So it is important how you approach it. Do not just leave few of the chapters considering कि ये तो कभी नहीं आया है, पहले 5-6 सालों से क्वेश्चन नहीं आ रहा, अभी भी नहीं आएगा. You just see the history in ICI papers. What has not come frequently suddenly comes for a huge number of marks, and students just fail to answer in that exam pressure because they have not revised those parts. So it's very important to cover it, but in a smart way. So just few do's and don'ts. What you need to do in 1.5 days, just kind of summarizing. One thing, yes, I would like to emphasize, most of you, I hope you have written some papers and you have done some paper writing practice before these days. So what you can do in this 1.5 days is just quickly glance to what mistakes you have made in the past, and just recollect those mistakes. Just see that these should not happen in your final exams, because that is the entire objective to write the question papers in your while studying. So if you repeat the same mistakes in an exam, it's of no use, no point in writing papers. So you need to revise, you need to review your mistakes just before the exam, so you do not repeat it. And believe me, while you're reviewing these mistakes, you will automatically recollect the entire summary crux of that part where you have gone wrong, and you will avoid that mistakes in the final exam as well. Again, the important formulas and summary books would aid to your efforts in this 1.5 days. Now coming to this part, revisionary test papers and mock test papers. Most of the people, I was surprised to know a few category of people even don't know that there is a revisionary test papers and mock test papers. Few of them know but don't know their importance. Few of them know their importance but don't get the time, or just don't keep it at their priority list. But I've just, during my attempt, I tried to make an analysis, and what I had come to a conclusion, there is at least 5 to 10 marks worth of question that usually come from RTP of the current attempt as well as from the last 3 attempts. So all combined, 3 or 4 RTPs and MTPs would fetch you at least 5 to 10 marks. And believe me, the sums are exactly in the same manner what they were as they are appearing in the RTPs and MTPs. Of course, these might not hold good for all the papers, all 8 papers at once, but majority of the papers have some relevance, some relevant question from the RTP and MTPs. So it's very essential that you need to go through these questions. In fact, the entire RTP and MTP before the exam. So if you were to listen to me, it was you should at least do them twice or thrice. So not just in 1.5 days, twice or thrice. You need to do it once before when the RTPs and MTPs are issued. Once if you get again the time, and just review those specific questions which you feel are important in these 1.5 days. But you need to cover these RTPs and MTPs. Again, as some of the students, they make a mistake of covering only specific topics before the exam which they feel are important. So you can just have a look at the past previous papers. There are few questions that come just out of the blue, not expected by anyone, for a huge number of marks. So it's you'll be able to attempt those questions only when you have covered all the things, all topics before the exam. So at least have a glance through those topics which you're not able to do in depth, but don't leave any of the topics entirely. Of course, studying something new before the exam is a strict no again. You cannot let your mind to think something which is not done before and engage your efforts and your energy into something entirely new at the cost of you revising something done before. And again, the probability of you studying something entirely new and that coming into the exam would be it's questionable, as in you cannot focus your entire energy into something new. So as a matter of advice, I always tell students, whatever you studied will come into the examination. Don't do anything new just before the examinations. And of course, you need to gather yourself and keep calm. Don't panic and lose confidence in yourself. That would be a kind of final blow. If how no matter how well you have prepared, if you're not confident enough, that it will be very difficult for you to push your limits. As I was saying, this is the average marks that I have at least analyzed during my attempts that come from mock test and revisionary test papers. It is very essential for you to go through them. And if you see the structure of revisionary test papers, it covers the amendments. It covers at least one topic from each of the subject. So if you are to view it through my lens, I would consider it as a revision of entire subject. If you take the RTP of law or audit, you'll see that there's one question from each of the topics. So in a way, you are revising that entire subject by covering at least one of the questions from each of the topic. So it tantamounts, as in you are revising the entire subject, and at the same time you are covering the RTPs as well. And if you believe me, if you cover at least 3 RTPs, as in one of your attempt and 2 or 3 RTPs before your attempt, you would be covering substantial amount of the syllabus. So it's very important that you don't ignore these two, at least in this phase. During our time there were two modules, separate modules: practice manual and study material. Practice manual contained questions, and study material contained all the theory part. So there was this meme that I came across when it's very clear that you cannot just focus on your classes notes. You need to go through the questions in your study material. Again, yes, Manan has already covered this part. I'll just quickly cover it. It's not, as Manan said, it is not just for your FR paper that you require sleep. It's for your entire 15 days journey. That would you will be wanting to start it with a good confidence, and that will come only when you are mentally aware, mentally you have kept your energy, you have the ability to absorb the ups and downs in your question papers, and these all would come if you have adequate sleep. If your mind is aware, you'll have a better tendency to solve problems, solve complex issues, have better efficiency. So it's most of the students think that if they study 20 hours, 16 hours on the day or day before the exam, they'll cover entire thing. But you're doing it at the cost of your sleep, then it is a very disastrous thing again, to trying to attempt to do these things. Now I've covered so far what you need to do 1.5 days before the exam. Now I'll just move on to the part what you need to do on the exam day. So generally, if your exam is at 2 o'clock, you have few hours in the morning to go through the last phase that you want to do. What you need to do, what you need not do in these days of exam is what I'll cover. Again, one thing I'm repeating, in these 7 days as well as in 1.5 days, as well as on the day of the exam, you cannot study something new unless it is just kind of an amendment you're going through or having a glance. But you cannot study something which you have not done before. If you have not done something before, just leave it. That will not come into the exam. But if you try to attempt to learn those new things, there is a chance that you will you'll forget you'll forget whatever you've done so far. So it is better not to do something new. Just try to glance what you've done already. And it's quite normal to feel nervous and feel anxious on the day of exam as well as 1.5 days before. uh, there are many questions that come in your mind. You can have complete blackouts as well, that you don't know anything, you don't recollect anything, kuch bhi nahi aata hai mere ko. You would have that kind of thoughts. But that's all part of anxiousness and nervousness. Everyone faces it, and so do you. It's quite normal. All you need to do is to calm yourself. Just meditate for 10-15 minutes if you can. Just take deep breaths and try to recollect what you've already done in the previous day. That would go very well. That as people have come back and told me that it's worked in a very positive way, and they feel relaxed after doing this. So if you feel anxiety or nervousness, just stay calm and just try to meditate, and you'll come in terms with recollecting everything. So you can try this and stick to your plan. So this works both ways. So obviously all of you might have some strategy for the exam day, कि exam day पे पहले मैं ऐसे करूंगा, बाद में ऐसे करूंगा, and this is what I'll do. But once you look at the paper, what questions or what kind of questions you'd be expecting would not be the same what you might have planned. So still it is very essential to stick to your plan. Don't try to do something very new or experiment something in your exam paper. Just whatever you might have planned, whatever you might have thought of, just try to stick those plan. Of course you'll have to modify it if something in the exam comes unexpected. You'll have to tune your plans according to that. But you need to have a base plan and you need to work according to that. That is when you will be able to execute yourself, and that is when you'll come out with flying colors. As Manan said, you'll have to reach exam hall, and as also rightly pointed out by Preeti ma'am, you need to adjust yourself in the exam hall. You need to have a better understanding in the environment which you are planning to give exam. You need to be comfortable with that environment, and for that you need to go early. Of course, you get your papers 15 minutes early, so you need to reach a lot before that, at least on the first day of the examination. Yeah, so we come to the most important part: how to utilize 3 hours and 15 minutes of exams. And for the foundation students, or those who have less than this time, you can view it as whatever you need to do in the time of your examinations. Firstly, we get paper. Every one of you would know, you get your papers 15 minutes before your time. So it's very crucial, and believe me, it's game-changing part. What you need to do in these 15 minutes. How do you utilize these 15 minutes? It's very important, and it will have a bearing on your rest of the 3 hours as well. So here is what I used to do. People can have multiple strategies for this 15 minutes as well. But I generally advise, so since you do not get your MCQ papers in the first 15 minutes, MCQ papers is you get right on time, and then you can start that. Only the theory question paper is what you get 15 minutes before your examination. So at my I recollect in the previous attempts, the institute used to give MCQ paper also 15 minutes before, and it was a great opportunity for the students to do MCQs in those 15 minutes and get done with major chunk of their paper. But now you'll have only the theory question paper in front of you. So what you can do is, number one, glance through the questions, all the questions in the question paper. Just glance it. You should not read all the questions. You should not read the questions. You just need to glance. You should know कौन से topics आया है, क्या type का questions रहेगा, what is the question ultimately asking, and you should just take a note of this. Once you glance through the question paper, you'll have to spot those questions which you feel you can answer confidently with 100% accuracy. At least in 6 to 7 questions in the examination paper, 1 or 2 questions would be there that you can answer very confidently with good efficiency. You need to spot those questions. This is what you'll have to do in the first 15 minutes. It is very important that you take note of these questions. Once you spot these questions, decide a sequence for yourself. So there are 3 questions which you feel out of these 6 or 7 questions that are important, that you feel you are comfortable solving with these questions. So you need to decide sequence of these 3 questions. Which question you'll attempt first, which one will be the second, and which one will be the third. Believe me, this is very important because what you write first is what will make an first impact in the minds of the examiner. If you write your first question very well, it's up to the mark and to the point, you've covered everything, it will create a good impression in the minds of the paper. But if the first question you're attending is not up to the mark, is not accurate, is not correct, then that will set a tone for the examiner for the rest of the paper, and accordingly you may face a little ups and downs. But it is better to have the first question you're attempting to be the one which you are confident about. So that is what you'll have to do in the 15 minutes. You have to decide, you'll have to glance through, spot the question, decide a sequence, and lastly assign a broad structure. So in the first 10 minutes you would have decided the sequence. You'll have to spot the question and decide the sequence. Now you are still left with 5 minutes and you have decided the question you'll attempt first. So just decide a broad structure of your answer, what you need to cover. Of course, you don't have your answer sheet, you cannot write the answer, but you need to decide a main structure. How would you answer the question? What all things would you cover? What will not cover? And just the head points maybe. And this, believe me, this would boost your confidence. Once you write this, you start writing the paper, you will see that the first question will be able to complete in a very short span of time with high accuracy. So that is what this 15 minutes can do, have the ability to do. Now, once your paper starts, you have net 3 hours. Once you get your answer sheet, you have 3 hours to solve your question paper. What you need to do in this 3 hours. So I'll just put all the things up front. Is a basic strategy that first, however good grip you may be having on your subject, however confident you may be feeling, in the first 1.5 hours, you should try to find those questions, those problems that will fetch you 40 marks. Because first, your initial aim should always be to clear 40 ka range. Once you've cleared 40 ka range, then you can maybe aim 60, or then you can aim further. But to begin with, you'll have to gain your 40 marks confidently, without any doubt, in the first 1.5 hours. This is very important because once you've attained that confidence कि पूरे 100 मार्क्स के पेपर में मैंने 40 मार्क्स का तो एटलीस्ट इतना अटेम्प्ट कर लिया है कि आई विल बी एबल टू रीच समवेयर नियर दिस 40 marks and my 40 marks are ascertained, then you'll have the time, you'll have the energy, you'll have the mental frame to push yourself from 40 to 60 and from 60 and above. So for the first 1.5 hours, what you should do is you'll have to find those 40 marks of questions which will get you par in this subject. In the next 1 hour, you can try to make that 40 marks to 60 marks. So you need an additional 20 marks and you have 1 hour. But believe me, it sounds easy. It will not be, because now you'll have to work harder. You already have consumed those questions which you knew already, which you are confident. Now you will try to solve those questions which you are less confident about, and you'll have to make 20 marks out of that questions in the next 1 hour. And lastly, if you have some time left in the last half an hour, 20 minutes, and you have already completed 60 marks worth of questions, or questions that will help you achieve to 60 marks, Then you can just try for attempting those questions which you otherwise were less confident, but now we'll have to now we'll have to answer those questions in a manner that will help you take your score above 60 marks. So this is a broad structure of this 3 hours, how you should approach your 3 hours of examinations, what should be your goal, and what should be your aim. So of course, in the first 1.5 hours, everyone, however good your grip may be, you should first try to at least secure these 40 marks, because that if you don't secure a 40 marks, then all the rest of the 7 papers, all the rest of the papers may have no implication on your result. If one of the subjects you score 39, it's game over. So on all topics, it's you need to focus first on your 40 marks. So now we have discussed key how you need to do it, how do you need to spend your 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now we'll discuss key how what you should write exactly, how you should write. Now I'm assuming you are in a state that you know क्या करना चाहिए, कैसे करना है, that we'll discuss in the subsequent slides. So as I already touched upon in the previous slides, first impression is last. You need to attempt those questions that you know very well in the beginning. And people often try to correlate this with BCom exams or any other university examinations, where people feel that the length of the answers would matter, and that will fetch them more marks. But believe me, this is not the case when it comes to professional exams. Only and only a quality of the exam, quality of your answer matters. So be specific and to the point. Don't just try to beat around the bush. Come directly to the answer, what you intend to say, what question is asked. Just give the provisions, what you of course I'll be showing how one of the answers I have written in the actual examinations. I asked for my copies from RTI, and I'll just share a screenshot of one of the answer. But that is what it is all about. You should focus on the quality rather than the quantity of the answers. That will help you push your score from 40 to 60. And as previously covered, you'll have to try to stick to the ICS pattern of answering questions. That will of course there may be other pattern of answering which may also be correct, and you may also get marks in those kind of structure of writing answers. But believe me, it's better to stick it to sticking to ICS suggested answers. It will be, you're making it easy for the examiners to evaluate your copies. So at the end after giving the exam, if the examiner is in a frame of mind that you have written everything that is covered in the ICS suggested answers, they have more probability of getting good marks. Of course, you need to start new question on new page, be it a sub question. So if question number 5 has part A and B, not only question number 5, but each of the sub questions of the question number 5 need to start it on a new page. That would have a great bearing on your presentation, and of course it will set a tone. So you will yourself be able to identify structure that would be good by starting each question in on a new page. You need to underline relevant provisions. Of course, this part is only if you have time left, if you have relevant time. If you're struggling to complete 100 marks of papers, don't try this, and this will not fetch you additional marks. Again, this is for better presentation and creating a good impression in the minds of the examiner. So you need to underline important provisions of your answers. If you have quoted section numbers and if you are confident about it, underline the section number, underline the statute that you're referring to, underline the conclusion, the main part of the answer that you give, maybe towards the end or somewhere near the end. You need to highlight those parts, because again, just have a you from the examiner's lens, they'll have multiple papers to check. They may not get time to you to read each and every line of your answers. If you're underlining specific part, you're telling them indirectly that this is the thing that you are looking for and this is the thing that you have written. So it will be better for them to evaluate, and it will in turn can fetch you more marks. You need to, wherever possible, try to answer in points. If it's in a pointer form, it is better for someone who reads it to evaluate and to ascertain that you have covered everything in a phased manner, in a structured manner. So it is better to cover in points. Of course, this is not for each and every type of questions. There are some questions which you need to write in a paragraph form, which is better. So, for example, there's a case law question. You cannot. It is better if you write in a paragraph form specifying each and every paragraph. So yeah, this is what I was referring to earlier. This is question paper from one of direct tax in my attempt. So there was a question number 5A2, which you can see that I have highlighted. This was a question based on a case law. So just wanted you to show how I have tried to attempt this kind of question and how many marks I was awarded for writing in particular pattern. So this is the way that I tried to attempt this question. Firstly, as you can see, I've started a new question on a new page. Just mention the citation if you are really confident about it. This was one of the case law which had come up in the amendments in our recent attempts. So I remembered the case law, and so if you are only confident, you should mention this citation. Then firstly, you need to there are multiple ways of answering the question. What I have followed is to categorize in 4 major parts. Firstly is the issue involved. So if you can see have a look at the question paper. It is in a form of a case study, a short case study. High court mein kya hua, ITAT mein kya hua, what was the case. So by starting your answer, you first are highlighting that you understand what is the question, and you are type of summarizing the question in 1 or 2 lines. So just summarize the issue involved in the question, so the examiner understands that you have understood the question correctly. Then quote the provisions of the law. So the examiner then understands that you also know what is this question relating to, which provision is this question relating to. It is not just that you know the answer, you know the specific provision as well. Then analyze. So first you have written issue and then the provision. Now just correlate first and second part. Just analyze how the issue is relating to this provision, and what things can so how you can use this provision for solving this issue. So that comes in the analysis part. And as you can see on the next page, I've underlined specific part of my answers which I felt was main crux of the question. And finally you give the conclusion that this is what is your final view is. Without the conclusion, it is a half-baked answer. Most of the students avoid or maybe forget to write the conclusion, but it's as important. Now you just have a look at the question, the marks that question was bearing. It is 4 marks question, and the examiner has very appropriately awarded marks for each and every steps. So for the issue, once I analyze what was the issue involved, there's 1 mark was given to me. Secondly, while analyzing, 1.5 marks was given to me. And finally, while concluding, I was awarded 1 marks. So out of 4 marks question paper, I received 3.5 marks. It is very difficult, of course, not impossible to get full marks, but if you can get 3.5 marks out of 4 marks questions, it's nothing like it. So yeah, just don't feel the pressure of the examination. Stay calm and just stay in your zone. It's of course it's very normal, but you need to handle yourself and just take a hold of the situation. Just act responsibly, and you'll be able to go through the examinations. So I'll just end my presentation with a small 4-minute video, which I believe would be good for your motivational aspects. So just have a look. This is a video of Denzel Washington, who gave his speech in his university many years after graduating from that university.
At a 1.7 grade point average. I hope none of you can relate. At a 1.7 grade point average. I was sitting in my mother's beauty shop. They still call it beauty shop now? What they call it? Yeah, I was sitting in a beauty parlor. I was sitting in my mother's beauty parlor, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I see behind me this woman under the dryer. And every time she looked up, every time I looked up, she was looking at me, just looking me in the eye. I didn't know who she was, and I said, she said, somebody give me a pen. Give me a pencil. I have a prophecy. March 27, 1975. She said, boy, you are going to travel the world and speak to millions of people. Now, mind you, I was flunked out of college. I'm thinking about joining the Army. I didn't know what I was going to do, and she's telling me I'm going to travel the world and speak to millions of people. Well, I have traveled the world, and I have spoke to millions of people. But that's not the most important thing, the success that I had. The most important thing is that what she taught me and what she told me that day has stayed with me since. I've been protected. I've been directed. I've been corrected. Fail big. That's right. Fail big. You only live once. So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances professionally. Don't be afraid to fail. There's an old IQ test with 9 dots, and you had to draw 5 lines with a pencil within these 9 dots without lifting the pencil. The only way to do it was to go outside the box. So don't be afraid to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. But remember, dreams without goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. So have dreams, but have goals, life goals, yearly goals, monthly goals, daily goals. I try to give myself goals every day, and understand that to achieve these goals, you must apply discipline and consistency. You have to work at it every day. You have to plan every day. You've heard the saying, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. Hard work works. Working really hard is what successful people do. And in this text, tweet, twerk world that you've grown up in, remember, just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Remember that. Just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot more done. Don't confuse movement with progress. My mother told me, she said, yeah, because you can run in place all the time and never get anywhere. So continue to strive, continue to have goals, continue to progress. And anything you want good, you can have. So claim it. Work hard to get it. When you get it, reach back. Pull someone else up. Each one, teach one. Don't just aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference.